Welcome back, Sebastian here. So today, just doing a bit of a news video, talking about some news from around the motorsports world. So obviously the big news coming out of Formula One last week was the news coming out of Haas that Gunther Steiner would leave Haas as team principal. Of course, Simone Resta also leaving Haas as kind of technical director. Ayao Komatsu was named as Steiner's replacement, named to the position of team principal. So obviously big news, a bit of a surprise as well, given the timing. Usually these kinds of decisions are made in like the late half, the end of the second half of the later part of the previous F1 season, kind of like when Binotto was let go at the end of 2022. So mid-January, as teams are kind of ramping up for 2024, timing's definitely a bit odd. The rumor is that basically Steiner and Gene Haas had basically differences over how they wanted the team to move forward in terms of the direction of development of the car. And this is certainly a pretty big story, so I'll probably make a separate video time looking at Gunther Steiner's time as team principal at Haas. Now, moving into Formula E news, of course, first Formula E race of the season was this past weekend. Definitely not the most exciting race, but quite a few news stories come out of that, as well as some other stories from before the weekend. So, starting with Mahindra, they basically released a AI ambassador named Ava Beyond Reality. And it's very clear to say from the one Instagram post that I had that it was not well received. I think, it feels like this was something that, like other teams in, motorsport in general, have kind of a trend that they've jumped on, similar to crypto, similar to the, I don't think it's really gotten to F1 or motorsport yet, but things like sports gambling, advertisement for tobacco, those kinds of things. And things where it seems like it's the next big thing, and teams are always trying to jump on it. And I think Mahindra looked at this and thought, oh, this is a new big thing, let's try jumping on this train. I think, unfortunately, it definitely did not go as the team planned. A lot of, outcry online, particularly about, really, I think a lot of the outcry online really centered around the fact that this AI avatar, this AI character was a woman. And the fact that, of course, motorsport has a lot less women than you would expect with a 50-50 split. They're underrepresented in the industry. So I think a lot of people kind of took criticism to the fact that Mahindra was basically employing an AI as a woman, instead of hiring an actual woman to fill some kind of ambassadorial role. And I think that's very fair to make that kind of criticism. I think the other thing on the other side, though, it's clear I don't think this was never a position that was taken by women. This was basically a brand new position that was taken for this AI ambassador role. And I think the reality is it was a lot cheaper to have this kind of position, this kind of AI position where it's not a real person. You don't need to pay for travel expenses, food, that kind of thing. And you could basically just have this kind of, thing where you basically just post AI pictures from each race weekend, and you basically somehow tap into that kind of niche market. Obviously not my kind of thing, not really the right personality or the right generation for that. But that being said, I do definitely understand the criticism of it, and it's just not a great look overall. And of course, they announced that it would be discontinued after less than a week. So fair to say that that criticism was heard loud and clear. All right, next, taking a look of news from the race. Apparently, we've had their first look of the Gen 3 Evo cars, the Formula E car that will be raced from next season, season 11 of the series. And some of the changes that have been basically at this point announced for the car are changes to the front wing, so it won't be the super angular picnic bench style front wing, and it will look similar to the front wing that we had for season 3 and 4, so at the end of the Gen 1 era. Other changes that are being announced are a possibility of a front powertrain or full four-wheel drive for qualifying or for the attack mode phase. And we'll also be getting new Hankook tires. Hopefully they're softer and closer to the Michelin tires that we had for Gen 1 and for Gen 2. Now, one of the things that was hyped up as being a big part of the Gen 3 era was this idea of attack charge, basically having pit stops in the middle of the race where teams would basically charge up a portion of the battery in some kind of really, really quick pit stop. Now, of course, that was supposed to come in last year. It didn't come in because of issues in testing. Start of this season, there was hope that it would be at every race, but it's clear that that's not happening. And there was a rumor at some point during the fall to the winter where they were looking at implementing it the second half of every back-to-back. At this point, we have due in 2 weeks' time, just a bit under 2 weeks' time. So no real update on that. Apparently, basically, Lucas Degrassi basically hinted in one of the interviews that it might be in like the second half of the season. So I would prefer it not to basically just show up mid-season. I would have preferred it to come from the very beginning of the season, but so be it. Okay, another big announcement that we got coming from the app team is that they've announced that they've split from Mahindra for season 11, so they will not be using the Mahindra powertrains. Makes some sense. The Mahindra powertrains have been arguably the worst powertrains at the start of the Gen 3 era, and it seems like they probably at this point feel it's best to cut their losses and find a more suitable partner for season 11 and season 12. They basically, it seems like they have to pick up pretty much anyone in the paddock if they really choose. But it'll be interesting to see who they choose. I think obviously they'll try to pick one of the teams that are higher up the grid. I'm not exactly sure what the exact rules are about how many teams you're allowed to supply, like the rules are in F1 where it automatically goes to the basically if no one wants to supply a team, it automatically goes to the team with the least amount of powertrains, which in this case would be Neo or ERT, I guess they're called this year. Definitely almost certainly would not be an upgrade from the Mahindra powertrain, but anyway, it'll be interesting to see what app to choose. So a couple stories coming out as well from around this race weekend. One more from kind of before the race weekend was an article from the race about Dan Ticktum being stuck career-wise. Honestly, a pretty interesting article, and it really highlights, I think it really kind of covers the main fact that we all know about Dan Ticktum, is that we know that pace-wise and based on kind of his career trajectory, he should be a guy that teams further up the grid should be really trying to hire and bring into their team in the coming seasons. But we know that because of his personality and his reputation, a lot of those teams, especially the manufacturers, I would presume, are very hesitant to bring him into the team because of the sometimes the negative image that he sometimes brings with him. So pretty good summary of kind of where things stand. I think one of the interesting parts of the article was that it mentioned that so the race basically canvassed all of the other team principals kind of anonymously and asked them if Dan Ticktum was available right now, would you sign him? I think and the response was that none of them would sign him right now, but they all basically said something along the lines of wait for 5 years and see how much he's matured. Of course, I think he's 24, turning 25 this year. So he's kind of getting up in age where he should be more mature. He should be able to calm himself down a bit more and not have these outbursts that he's been known for. But of course, interesting thing to watch, and we'll see how it progresses over the coming years. Now, a couple articles coming out about the race yesterday. So Motorsport.com reporting that the Friends crash was caused by a handling issue. So basically saying he basically just lost the rear suddenly on a patch of dirt trying to go around the outside of Mortara, which is kind of what we suspected. There was basically didn't really seem like there was any kind of contact, especially from the rear viewing camera as well. So just looks like a bit of an unfortunate mistake for Friends. Evans also from Motorsports.com reported a steering balance issue caused the pace drop, where apparently the steering became super heavy and he was locking up at almost every corner. So seems a bit unfortunate. Hopefully that's something that they can deal with in the coming races. All right, last two stories, not F1 related, but related to the junior categories. The junior team Rodin Carlin has basically rebranded and become Rodin Motorsports. Basically, the remaining shares of the team that were owned by Trevor Carlin have been bought out by Rodin. So it's now no longer the Carlin team. A very pretty famous team in the junior categories. Obviously, seemed a bit sad to see that name go, given how many great drivers have come through and driven for that team, including the likes of Lando Norris in Formula 2, for example. Lastly, Frederick Vesti, Formula 2 vice champion from 2023, has announced that he'll be driving for ELMS European Le Mans Series in 2024. Bit of an interesting move. I think it's basically a step down from World Endurance Championship, but still racing. I think the top category in that series races the what are basically LMP2 prototype cars. So definitely a good step up. And if he wants to have a career in endurance racing, it would definitely be a good step. I think unfortunately for him, it doesn't seem like he really has a future in Formula 1. Definitely had pretty good results, finishing second in his second year in the category. Is definitely kind of around the cutoff line for where you would say, could be a good F1 driver. But, lack of seats, and Williams basically didn't really feel like cutting Logan Sargent after 1 year. So, that's the way it is, and we'll see. All the best of luck to Vesti in ELMS this coming year. So, that's all the news for this week. Of course, hopefully nothing too much this week. Team launches are going to be coming up in, I believe, 2.5, 3 weeks time. So that's definitely something to look forward to. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.